Unfortunately, Liz Sanders, who is professor at Ohio State University and works in Make Tools Incorporated, she got COVID, so she wasn't able to take the plane to Norway. So because of that, Jonathan Romm will take her presentation, and we are very happy that you can present. You have also been a very important person in working with this framework. So Jonathan Romm, he is the partner in Halogen and designer, and he's also associate professor at AHO here in Oslo. Yes, I give the word to you. You're going to present the toolkit and the process of making it and why it's important.
Thank you, Anita. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna try to do my best as I'm kind of stepping in on behalf of Liz, that I'm sure would have done this much better than me. So please bear over with me. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about this CoReflect Toolkit and how it came about. Now you've seen the kind of backdrop for why we were at some point setting out to explore this space, and so let me share some of the behind-the-scenes stories. So the best practice project, which is kind of we coined out this idea of creating a best practice project in a sense, and it emerged during the I think it was in June 2009, the cluster meeting that we had here in Oslo, also partly here in it was held partly at Halogen, partly here at Doga, and at one point we discussed this kind of subject of what is actually best practice in healthcare co-design processes. And from that, we were kind of quite open about it, and I said there's no really kind of idea of what is best practice when it comes to these things. And then a few weeks later, both me and then Liz Sanders, we kind of wrote a preliminary proposal for what we called the best practice project, which was an intention to explore this design framework and a kind of a toolbox for collaborative assessments of healthcare service co-design processes, so that we eventually could develop an idea around what best practice actually is. And so we made this very quick sketch that we turned our focus towards the co-design activities that usually are taking place during such processes, leading us to asking the question of how to encourage more reflexivity during such processes. So here's kind of a sketch of a co-design process where you perhaps meet several times during a period of time, and during that process you may have some we thought them out as lenses and prisms that could inform a best practice of such a process. Eventually, while exploring the framework as Mariken presented to you earlier on, our focus here was to actually focus on the prisms, so the kind of micro evaluations that may take place during such processes. And the aim was to provide tools that could be used throughout the entire development process. It needed to be quick and easy to use, so that both healthcare innovators, researchers, designers or providers could use them in practice. And the ultimate objective was to use the tools to help build some kind of a collaborative culture within healthcare institutions, while constantly evaluating how this work is done, whether it works the way we want it to work, and so forth and so on. And this is quite a heavy text. It summarizes the entire process that we've been through. The main idea here is that we've been through several iterations, such as working with service design master students from the Oslo School of Architecture and Design, testing out preliminary ideas. We had representatives from 7 different leading design agencies in Norway during 2 workshops, further developing the toolkits and the tools. Then we had design facilitators from the cluster itself that provided feedback onto these tools that were developed. And also service designers from NTNU and from the Ohio State. They all tested out the parts of these tools and provided feedback, and throughout this process we iterated constantly around developing those the toolkit itself. So here you see some examples of early versions from some student work from the Oslo School of Architecture and Design. Here you see some pictures of the workshops that we held together with representatives from agencies. These are experienced healthcare service designers who were refining the tools that you saw earlier on. And then a first kind of version of these tools that we then went back and tested out in real settings, both with experienced facilitators and with novice, new students, and then gathered a lot of feedback of how they worked, what could be better. Actually, we found out that many of the cards were actually over-designed in a sense. Those visual prompts that we were trying to create, they were kind of too heavy in a sense. They didn't allow for more open interpretation of those questions posed, as an example. So what we see is during that process, these tools became more and more versatile, and we think that, or they have a characteristic, as we've seen, that they can be used both in the beginning, in the middle of the process, or at the end of the process of an innovation process, to evaluate how these co-design activities were going on. They can be used face-to-face, in face-to-face meetings or online. They can be used by individuals or groups. They're both helpful for beginners, as some of the students said, wow, this is the first time I'm actually doing a co-design session. That was really helpful for me to get feedback on how that went. But they can also be really, really useful for those who are more experienced facilitators for co-design workshops. So there are both really kind of super easy to use cards, and there are more advanced cards. And over time, if you, for instance, have a process that includes several co-design sessions, you may improve those based on the input that you get. And also, so that means that it's flexible in the sense that the co-design facilitators themselves, they can choose how many of these cards they want to use, and what is relevant to their process at the moment. And then we make them like an open source. They're freely available, both in Norwegian and in English, and hopefully quite easy to get hold on and use. The idea was to lower the threshold. And so the toolkit consists of 14 different evaluation activities represented by different cards, and they're divided into 6 different categories that you see here. For example, how well did we manage to build relationships? How did we use our time together? How did we share perspectives? Or how creative was this session actually? And then we have also more general activities, such as evaluating the material and the space, and also providing general feedback. And here you see some examples of the cards that were developed to support these evaluative. Mainly the idea is to raise the bar for how we work with these kinds of processes, and really encourage facilitators healthcare innovators to become more reflexive around those processes so that we can together, slowly but surely, make them better. So here, for example, you see one of the cards. So all the activities are kind of, they are prompted with a main question that can be posed either to an individual or answered by an individual, or it could be a subject matter for a group discussion. And there's a small kind of, let's say, guide on how to use them. So, but they're super simple and super easy to use. The next steps, as we see it for this CoReflect Toolkit, is, of course, to disseminate them more broadly, and we hope that you can help us with doing that. And so that more and more people have them available and make use of them. And we hope also to open them up so that we can continuously add more content and maybe design refinements based on feedback that you can provide us, and maybe extend the application of the toolkit to domains beyond healthcare. I mean, they were developed with intention to healthcare, but we think that many of them are actually quite generic and can be used in many other domains. So that was a bit about the story behind the CoReflect Toolkit. Thank you.